Thanks everybody for having me. So my name is Pippin Williamson. Some of you may know me. We've probably met a couple of times. I run two different companies here in Hutch. I run one called Sandhills Brewing that you may be familiar with if you visited our little microbrewery down at 111 West 2nd, next door to the Farmers Market. And I also run a company called Sandhills Development. Now, Sandhills Development may sound like a real estate company, but it's really a software development company. What we do is we build e-commerce and affiliate marketing tools, mostly to help small business owners put more of their business online. We've been doing it for a long time, about 10 years now, and we're 100% distributed. We've got people all around the world in about 4 or 5 different countries. And e-commerce is something that I'm pretty intimately familiar with. So I wanted to share a couple of just general overviews and a couple of small tips for small and local businesses just on the topic of e-commerce. And then I'd like to invite anybody to ask any questions you have. I'm happy to answer anything you have, whether it's something super technical, very, very specific, much more broad, anything at all related to e-commerce. We're gonna have plenty of time at the end. So I'm just gonna talk for about 10 minutes or so on a couple of e-commerce tools that are available to make sure that everybody is aware of them. I think a lot of times we think that e-commerce is this really, really complex, difficult thing, and it's overwhelming. And there's some truth to that, but that's a little bit of an antiquated viewpoint now, because the world of e-commerce has changed so much in the last 10 years that today it's actually very, very approachable, and it's not very challenging for a smaller local business to go ahead and put their business online. And this can apply to businesses of all types, whether you're a bakery, a coffee shop, a manufacturing company, a social media company, a marketing agency, a hair salon. Like, it really doesn't matter what your business is. There is a way to make e-commerce applicable to you. And especially in the last year during COVID-19, when so much of what we thought we knew about running our local businesses completely got turned on its head. E-commerce is more important than it's ever been. E-commerce is really, really complex. There's so much to it, and every business is a little different. So for example, the way that a coffee shop uses e-commerce is going to be different than the way that a grocery store does. It's going to be different than the way that a small web development agency does. It's going to be different than the way that a clothing business or a jewelry store or an antique store. The needs of each of these businesses is different. And because of that, e-commerce is incredibly complex, because e-commerce as a general category has to try to cater to all of those different needs. All of the different ways that people manage inventory, all of the different ways that people manage taxes, all the different ways that people interact or sell to customers, deliver a product or service to customer, collect payments from customers. There's so many variations. And so for a long time, e-commerce has been incredibly expensive. I'd say at a bare minimum, it used to be that e-commerce would cost a minimum $5,000 to launch a store, easily up to $50,000 plus for a business to put their store online. That, however, is absolutely not the case anymore. There are tools that make it significantly cheaper and significantly simpler. Up till a few years ago, if you wanted to put your store online and have some kind of e-commerce store, you pretty much had to hire a web development agency to build the store for you. And that gets very, very expensive. Today, however, that's really not that necessary. There are absolutely still times and places when you would want to hire an agency to build a store for you. But if you are just thinking about getting started, and e-commerce is something that you're either not familiar with or your business hasn't done, you're not sure how successful it's going to be, that's maybe not the right time to be looking at spending $50,000 to $50,000 as an investment. Instead, you can absolutely start a full e-commerce aspect to your business for $50 a month or less, because the tools available today are just so much better than they used to be. I'm going to go ahead and just walk through. I've got 5 different tools that I want to mention, and I wish that I could show you in depth what each one of these tools did and how they work, but we don't have the time for that. So what I'm going to do is mention them by name, tell you roughly what they start at from a price point, and tell you where to go and find more about them, so that if this is something that you think that you're interested in or that your business needs to do, at least I'm going to give you a starting point. So let's take a look at a couple of the tools. Number one, Shopify.com is probably the most popular. It is also the one that most people are, if you've heard about e-commerce tools, Shopify.com is probably it. It's an extremely powerful tool that will give you everything that you need. And actually, as a quick caveat, all of the 5 tools that I'm going to mention to you all provide more or less the same capabilities. They will all provide order management. They'll all provide inventory, payment processing, customer management, shipping and fulfillment, taxes, reporting, and even some marketing tools. For example, like email marketing. So all of those features are available in all 5 of these tools. So Shopify.com is one of the most popular. It's very well known. It's an incredibly good tool. I've used it a couple of times. I can tell you, like, personal experience. My mom actually has a small local business that she runs. She sells antique buttons, and she sells it through Shopify.com. Starts at about $29 a month. Each one of these is going to range from $0 to $50 a month for their starting plan. They do have some pricing options that go higher than that, depending on what your individual needs are or the additional tools or features that you want. But the starting plan is, I'm going to mention the starting plan for each one of them. So Shopify starts at $29 a month. Will give you everything that you need to get going. Squarespace is another very popular one, pretty well known. Starts a little bit cheaper, starts about $18 a month. Again, it's going to provide everything that you need. It's going to allow you to start up a store from 0 to finished and get your business live. Wix.com is another very popular one, similar to Squarespace and Shopify. This one starts at about $23 a month and then goes up from there. SquareUp.com is actually one of the most popular e-commerce platforms available. However, where most people are probably familiar with it is actually in local and small businesses. You ever go into a small retail place that has that little white register with an iPad, little one that turns around? That's powered by a system called Square, or SquareUp.com. It is a complete e-commerce tool for doing the e-commerce aspect, as well as the in-house point of sale system. It's what I use here at Sandhills Brewing. It's extremely easy to use and phenomenal. It actually starts at $0 a month and then goes up from there, so that you can start selling on Square for $0 a month. WordPress.com. WordPress is actually the software that powers over 40% of the internet. It is a content management system, but it also has a very significant e-commerce portion of it, and it starts at $45 a month. This is the software that I am the most familiar with, because this is what I have worked in for the last 10 years. My company, Sandhills Development, all of the software products that we build work on top of WordPress. So I've been working with WordPress for about a little over 10 years now, since it was very, very early. And today it powers over 40% of the internet. So it's pretty popular. So those are the 5 main tools that I would encourage you to look at. All of them are going to be pretty comparable in, let's just say, their baseline functionality of providing the most of the needs that most stores are going to have. And then each one of them are going to have their own advantages or disadvantages depending on what you need. They all start with either a $0 or small monthly fee, which is basically a subscription for getting access to using their system. And then they charge on a per transaction fee. So typically it's 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction. So if you think about a $100 transaction, you're going to pay about $3 in credit card processing fees for that sale. Now, let's do a little bit of quick, easy math. Actually, I'm jumping ahead myself for a second. let's do a little bit of quick, easy math to figure out if this is a price point that actually makes sense. I'm gonna make the argument that every single business, if you can justify it, if you can get 2 sales a month, most of the time. If it's gonna cost us about $40 a month, how many sales do we need for it to pay for itself? Well, if you have a $20 product, it's gonna take 2 sales, roughly, to make this e-commerce system pay for itself. If you have a $5 product, it's gonna take a little bit more. If you have a $100 product, it's only gonna take 1 sale a month. So I say that it typically takes less than 10 sales per month. And that's probably true, but that's going to entirely depend on what your business is. You know, if your average purchase is $25, your average purchase is $100, or your average purchase is $5, that will help you determine whether or not, or how quickly these tools can pay for themselves. But at a $20 product, you only need 2 sales a month to pay for a system like this to make it worthwhile. And I think that's really, really important, because when we think about setting up an e-commerce store for our business, oftentimes we look at the cost involved and we think it's just so expensive. It's so hard to do. We have to spend thousands of dollars. And that's not the truth. You know, can you do that? Absolutely. But it is not a requirement for getting started. All of these tools will provide everything that you need to get your business online, and then you can expand it from there. And so at a minimum, if you think that you can sell 2 orders a month or 10 orders a month, depending on what your average order is, I would say that you should seriously be considering setting up an e-commerce store if you don't have it. A couple of these tools, one of the challenges that happens a lot for businesses is the struggle of, if you have an online inventory and you have an in-house inventory, keeping those synchronized or not accidentally overselling. Let's say, for example, you're a t-shirt shop and you have five individual shirts of a size. You don't want to accidentally oversell them online and then realize that you can't deliver them. So having something that manages inventory online and in-house can be really important. And several of these systems allow those to synchronize. SquareUp and Shopify are good examples where you can synchronize your in-house inventory with your online inventory. Okay, e-commerce allows us to go a lot further and to take our businesses beyond local. You know, anybody who here is a local business owner, I think, is probably proud to be a local business owner and a small business owner. And we like supporting our local communities. We like being part of the local economy and knowing our customers. But the truth is that there's a limited number of people here. And depending on your business, you may have all the customers you can possibly handle, or you may have tapped out the local audience. The beautiful thing about e-commerce is that your potential audience becomes the whole country, or potentially the entire world, because everything is online and it doesn't really matter where the customer is. It doesn't really matter where you are. Well, as long as we're thinking about products that are either shipped or somehow delivered. If you're a coffee shop, for example, this isn't really going to expand your business much outside of local, because people are still going to come in to pick up your coffee unless you can ship it to them. As long as your business is one that does not necessitate the customer coming into your door, e-commerce allows you to expand your audience beyond your local customers. And that is really, really valuable, especially if the product or service that you have is something that could be marketed to or be utilized by people around the country or around the world. And without e-commerce, that's just not really an option. So I would encourage anybody who is interested in e-commerce, thinks they need to do it, or has just been toying with the idea, to at minimum go check out the 5 tools that I mentioned. Those are Shopify.com, Wix.com, Squarespace.com, WordPress.com, and SquareUp.com. And if anybody can't remember those or didn't write them down, I'll put my email address at the end. Feel free to email me anytime. More than happy to shoot those back over to you. The last year has been really interesting for businesses, and I think we've had to completely relearn how to operate as small local businesses. So much has changed. Thankfully, the light seems to be at the end of the tunnel, that pretty soon we'll be able to go back to the way that things were. But the truth is that we're probably never going to go back 100% to what business used to look like. So many businesses in the last year went online, and so many customers in the last year changed their shopping habits. As a personal example, my wife and I don't go into the grocery store anymore. And we probably won't go into the grocery store very much in the future, because we place our order online, we drive up and they bring it out, and we drive away. And that is probably a behavior that's not really going to change that much in the coming years. If that is something, if you can think about the way that your business has been affected by COVID and what type of changes have happened, some of those changes are probably going to stick around. And e-commerce is one of the tools that addresses some of the changes that have happened. Okay, so that was pretty brief. I know I wasn't able to go into a ton of detail about some of these tools, but I want you to ask me anything you want. You can literally ask me any question, whether it's about taxes or inventory or technology. It's up to you. Ask anything you want. If you are uncomfortable asking, or you think of a question later, you can also reach out to me at any time. It's pippin@sandhillsdev.com. I'm pretty easy to find. I also work downtown almost every day of the week, and so if you can't find me online, you're always welcome to come and find me at the brewery.